I'm Jade and I wanted to do a video today about the difficulty with perfectionism and how it really links in with our OCD. And I thought I would do it today because I kind of got borderline triggered by it today. So I thought, this is fresh, my brain's doing a little thing, and it would be a good time to talk about it and just break down how, because I'm quite far along in recovery and consider myself, I suppose, recovered in that I don't really suffer with OCD day to day anymore. It doesn't affect my life. I thought I would talk about what that's like when the anxiety sort of tempts to come in and like the brain is activated in the same way that it would when OCD really locks on, and how that feels today versus what it would be like before. So what happened today is a bit of a short story, I'll tell you, and it just really got me thinking about how perfectionism plays so much into OCD and how us being scared of not being perfect and being a person who could make mistakes is like a really key part to it. So today I was at a really nice lunch with my friend, and I think I just said something in passing and it maybe came across as a criticism of her, and she kind of got her back up a little bit and was like, I can't believe you would say that to me. You said something like that to me 10 years ago and I've never forgot it. Yeah, that's really what you think of me. You think I'm materialistic or whatever. It was something like that. And I instantly felt my brain go, you know that feeling? And it was like, you're judgmental. You're a judgmental person. You expect too much of people. You're really like judgy. You're mean. You're horrible. You're hiding who you really are. And I felt it all like starting. It was almost like the brain was activated a little bit and like berating myself. And I'm going to explain why I feel fine with it all versus being pretty triggered like I would have been in the past. And I think it's because I've achieved a fairly deep level of unconditional self-acceptance, in that it hasn't latched. It's upset me in a small amount in that it wasn't a very nice exchange between a friend, and that's not something that I'm used to or enjoy. So I was quite like taken aback that she had thought, you know, that way of me. So we cleared it up and it's all fine, but it was just interesting to really notice that probably the first time in a year since I've been doing really great with OCD that something tried to attack. And yeah, I think what happened quite quickly was when the narrative in my brain started going with like, you're really judgy. That's the one that's kind of getting me a little bit, because I'm thinking, you do have quite high standards for people. That's what my brain is doing, like literally right now. That's why I thought I'd record this. But I am much more at peace with, even if that's true, I'm not a perfect person, no one is. So maybe for whatever reason, I've ended up that way as a person. And is that really the worst thing in the world? No. So I can accept myself, even if there is an element of my character that at times can be judgy. And I more mean judgy in that, like, I want everything perfect. I want everyone to be right and wholesome and doing the right thing and making the best choices a lot of the time for them. So it was just really interesting to notice my brain having new patterns now, rather than like diving straight into self-berating and feeling horrendous. It just sort of like unlocked itself. So while I was eating, like, my thing has always been, if I get triggered, I can't eat. I just feel sick, like I get all hot and freaked out and I can't eat. So I nearly felt that come in as she was telling me these things. Part of it was like, I don't feel very comfortable when I'm like, if someone's upset with me about something. But part of it was OCD trying to latch. So I was like, oh my God, I'm halfway through my plate of pasta. What am I going to do? Like, am I not going to be able to eat? Am I going to freak? And then it was almost like my brain automatically remembers all the tools, and it just stopped there. It stopped at like, oh, this isn't nice. You know, I'm having a disagreement with a friend. And it didn't go into the like pulling me down stage. So that was really good. But I definitely think that the difference is I'm at peace with not being perfect. In reality, no one is. And if perhaps apparently whatever I said 10 years ago, if that's true and that hurt her all these years, well, there we go. You know, I just said, I'm really sorry if that's the case. Can't go back in time. So I think a lot of it is making peace with imperfection as a person, as a human, because we all are. We've all got our own thing. And so whatever mine may be, if I'm aware of them, I'll do my best not to let those elements of my character sort of rule me and go around hurting people. But at the same time, I can be at peace that even if my worst fears about myself did have some elements of truth, then what can you do? So I was just thinking about that idea of how many areas of OCD is about perfectionism, you know, the relationship side of it, like our OCD. If it's not perfect, it's awful. If I'm not perfect, I'm awful. And I think for me especially, OCD really was able to get into my life in a big way around this idea of not being perfect. And it's just interesting to observe as a person who doesn't suffer day to day with OCD. I just found it really interesting today to feel a bit of a trigger coming on, and I just wanted to document what happened in reality. And I know that tonight, like, I feel a little bit heightened now, but I'm definitely not ruminating. I'm not working it out. I'm not thinking about the scenario. I'm probably just a little bit like taken aback that something out of the ordinary happened today that surprised me. So I think by tonight I probably will have forgotten about it, whereas before I would have plunged into like really trying to work it out, ringing her, asking her, you know, well, what does she mean by what I said in the past? Can she think of any other examples? Or, you know, trying to justify massively why I'm not the person that she thinks I am. And yeah, that's the difference today, is that it's probably more of a normal response to a friend telling you that you'd hurt their feelings in the past. You just feel a little bit gutted and a bit surprised. And it just sort of reminded me, I've always wondered what it's like after the chronic OCD suffering. You know, people say, is it like you still have OCD? I suppose today reminded me that my brain is still an OCD brain. I've still got it. There's still the potential for it to fall back into being irrational. So, for example, today, if I hadn't remained rational, if my brain hadn't been set up for that, maybe I could have been pulled down again. So I probably need to keep on top of the tools and make sure that I don't slip into being irrational again, because I think sometimes, like, you can learn philosophies and you can have new outlooks on life, but you can sort of forget them, a bit like how if you've been training for 3 months solid and you're getting really fit and active, but then you just stop training. I don't work on recovery anymore. I don't like read the books or practice disputing irrational beliefs or anything like that. It's all, my beliefs are sort of set and changed. But it's just an interesting reminder that I suppose for the rest of my life I'll have the tendency to be obsessive. I might tend towards that, and I'll have to keep an eye on it and make sure I remain rational. So it was an interesting day for that. And I've spoken to a lot of other OCD sufferers in the past where perfectionism, when you're on the outside talking to someone else with OCD, you can see it a mile off. They'll be like, I don't know, oh, what if I did this mistake at work? And as an outsider who isn't scared about making a mistake at work, you can be like, well, don't worry about it. You know, maybe you did make a mistake at work. People who aren't worried about mistakes at work can see how that wouldn't be scary. But if that's your thing, your area of perfectionism where you really want to be right and wholesome and good, it's going to get you. So I think that my perfectionism is about character. So I've always worried that, oh, what if I'm not very nice, or what if I'm selfish, or what if I'm really judgy and I think I'm better than everyone else? And that's one that has tended to get me, because I live a certain way and I'm always trying to be kind to others. My brain would sometimes say, oh, you think you're better than everyone else. And so, yeah, I've just been thinking about it today, like, maybe even if I am like that, you know, I can't help it. That's kind of, having awareness of it a good thing? So I think just my advice to you, if you're struggling with perfectionism, is just to take a step back and think about people that you love, like maybe your dad or a brother or sister, and just think about their character as a whole. There will be elements of their character that are not 100% awesome. Like you might say, oh, my friend so and so, she's really good at this, but yeah, don't talk to her about depression because she does not get it. Or my dad is really caring, but he's not great with like talking about his feelings. Or so and so is brilliant, but she is quite judgy of others. And like, that doesn't stop you thinking they're awesome. But when it comes to ourselves, we really want to achieve that perfection. And so I think the other area that I've noticed in my life with perfection is this feeling of like, I won't be happy until everything in life is absolutely sorted. So I suppose now that my heavier themes like POCD, ROCD, bit of harm sprinkled in there, now that they don't affect me and none of the heavy stuff is there anymore, I notice more like just wanting everything perfect. And it doesn't make me anxious, it just makes me think I'm probably not gonna live a great life until these things are sorted out. So that's been my mission the last few months, is to be like more at peace with my house being messy because I've got young children. Or do you know what, it doesn't matter that there's always a to-do list. Like I like my finances in order, I like every bill, every piece of paperwork sorted, and that is not the case at the moment. And I'm just trying to make peace with like the messiness of life, because there's always going to be something. And I always think, you know, in a couple of years something really big might have happened, like my in-laws could be really sick because they're a bit older now, or I could be really sick, or something could happen to my kids or my relationship. And I just sort of think, today, if we can't be happy today, we won't ever be happy, in a general sense, you know, aside from OCD suffering, because I know that I wasn't happy really when I was in that place. But like making peace that nothing is ever going to be perfect. And so perfectionism, it's amazing how even after OCD suffering, it still tries to get in. Like even if I leave the house, it doesn't bother me. And I know it's not compulsive, because I will leave the house messy. I just really don't like it. I like everything done, and I like everything right. And at the moment, it's not realistic because of the other responsibilities. So what am I going to do? Am I going to spend all the years of my children being small, wishing it away, wanting it to be a time where I can achieve that perfectionism? And then all of a sudden I get to that place and there's something else going on. So I think perfectionism in relation to irrational beliefs and like achieving unconditional self and life acceptance, I think perfectionism is just at the heart of all of it. We're so scared to be even 1% a bad person or in the wrong. But you know, as a reminder about unconditional self and life acceptance, no one is wholly good or wholly bad. So for me, it was never about agreeing with, oh yeah, I'm an awful person or I'm terrible, because that absolutely isn't what we're doing with unconditional self-acceptance. It was just more about turning down that fear, that terror of being a bad person, and breaking down this concept of what even is a bad person. You know, I was actually talking to my daughter the other day because we were driving towards the prison, and she said, Mummy, that's where they throw the people, the bad people, they throw them in there. And I said, oh no, people get put in jail. No, they throw them in, she said, they throw them in. I think it's from a book she's been reading. And I said, oh, well, why do you think they go to prison? And she was like, oh, they're really baddies, they're bad people, they could get chucked in jail. So I love the new perspectives I have on life, because we've had a few conversations since then. And even now, she says, oh, look, Mummy, it's a jail. That's where people go when they've made a mistake, to help them get better. Because they've made a mistake and they need to learn that's not helpful. You know, they need to get better. And that's what I want my kids to view, you know, prison and like people who make mistakes, is that we don't write people off. So I think I've probably got a little bit more work to do on perfectionism for myself. It's not affecting life in any big way. So I don't want to be like, oh, poor me, this is awful, because I know how lucky I am with all the hard work that I've made. And if you haven't seen any of my other videos, you might want to scroll back. I share my recovery journey in quite a lot of detail a few weeks ago, about how much better life has been since I've done loads of work on OCD recovery. And yeah, this is the first time in maybe like 6 to 9 months I felt a little bit of a wobble, but in no way high anxiety, just oh, look at that, that's interesting, my brain's trying to do something there. So I wanted to share that to show you what to expect on the other side. You know, I don't know if there's levels further ahead than me in terms of recovery. I don't know if this is just life forever now. Like most of the time I don't realise I've got OCD, and then every now and then something tries to trigger me, but it doesn't materialise. That's kind of how I feel about it all. And that turned down response has definitely come about from the unconditional self and life acceptance. I mean, I literally, my brain, because I nearly was turned off my pasta, which is hard to do these days. I mean, I couldn't eat years ago. The thought of going out to a restaurant was just anxiety inducing. But today, for the first time in months and months and months, I felt a small wave of anxiety, and I thought, I'm not going to be able to eat my food. Am I going to have to leave? And then something just went, it was like a reminder. It was just really weird. I didn't do anything. It was just like a reset of like, who gives a shit if who cares if you are that? And I didn't tell myself that. It wasn't like a compulsive, oh no, you're not that. It was just a brain going, but we don't care if you're selfish. Why is that important in the grand scheme of life? Who really cares about that? That's just boring. So it was almost like the brain not caring. Like, I don't know, if you drove past a post office and it's shut, your brain sees the sign closed and goes, we don't care about that. It was the same sort of thing. I really don't know why I said about a post office then, but you know, we don't care about that was sort of the narrative. So yeah, I'm glad I hopped on to talk about this. It's helped me to like reflect on the day and revisit perfectionism, I suppose. And I'm going to challenge some of my beliefs, because I've noticed them creeping in the last few weeks, just in relation to life's been a bit tough recently with sleep and not having any time for myself. And I have been getting into whining a little bit, like, I've got no time for myself, this is, you know, unbearable, I can't do this. And I'm kind of like remembering that I'm becoming a little bit irrational maybe, and maybe that's because I haven't really done anything on my mindset for about 12 months. I've just been like new baby, like not sleeping, just powering through, working a little bit. So maybe I need to do a little bit of a refresher. I don't know. If you have any thoughts on that, please feel free to comment on the video and I will check them. So my takeaway that I would leave today is have a little look at what your limiting beliefs might be around perfectionism. Are there elements of your beliefs about yourself, and are there things that are currently triggering you that are linked to wanting to be the perfect person? You know, no person is going to have all areas of life absolutely perfect. You know, if you're empathetic, you may also be fairly sensitive. If you're very direct, you may also be very uncompassionate. It's kind of like, you know, the yin and yang. You can't be all things. So if we're weaker in some areas, and we might need to work on those areas, great. But another thing I learned was, I would always say, I need to work on this, I need to work on that. But that's kind of in the pursuit of perfection as well. So like, oh, I'm not very good at doing this, I need to work on that. And you don't, you know, you can be you can be a little bit imperfect. So today was a pretty good day because it kind of, it's a really close friend of mine, by the way, and we're very open with each other, so it wasn't a big deal. We've been friends for like 20 years. So it was a bit of a conversation of like, oh look, do you know what? That was a long time ago, and if I did say that, well, there you go. I am sorry if I hurt you at the time, but come on, like, do you really think that I think that of you? You know, let's just talk it out. And just left it alone, really. And then, yeah, just worked on accepting the fact that today I might have been made aware of a bit of a character flaw of mine. And that can be illuminating sometimes, you know, if you're not really aware of something and then you become aware of it. Like a few weeks ago, I was at my in-laws' house and I left a cup of juice on the side, and my sister-in-law said, you always do that. You leave drinks half drunk everywhere, all the time. I was like, oh my God, all the time. And my father-in-law went, yeah, you've always done it. Like, you waste drinks every day. There's half a peppermint tea over there. You didn't finish your Prosecco. There's wine on the table. There's orange juice here. You always do it. And I was like attacked. And then I was just like, oh, laugh at it. It's funny, you know, like taking ourselves so seriously, you know, like that's what OCD thrives on. So if we can take ourselves a bit less seriously, just see life as like somewhere up to 100 years of just hanging out and doing stuff and getting on with life and being messy with it and like doing our best to enjoy the ups and downs. That's what I've been learning over the last few years. And if anything today is like, oh, that's interesting, I hadn't realised maybe a friend or maybe other friends have got that perception of me, and here we go, you know. So you can see I struggle with it a little bit, but I'm going to work on it and I'm going to use it as a learning to learn about how OCD is trying to get in. And like I said, luckily there's no anxiety accompanying it. It's more of a wanting to be perfect without the sort of chronic anxiety element of OCD. More of I guess an obsessive personality trait than a high anxiety that I used to feel. So I wonder if by nature I'll always be a relatively obsessive person, like I'll have to keep an eye on it. Maybe that's what recovery looks like, just keeping an eye on ourselves, making sure that we don't get too into stuff, you know. Like I'll notice with social media use, I can end up like quite obsessively checking for notifications every few minutes, and I'm like, is this normal or is this just my brain? So if you're struggling with perfectionism, you know, feel free to comment in the comments below. Let me know if any of this resonates, and catch you again soon. Bye.